All right, guys, we are here. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Tuesday. Graham, how are you doing today, man?
I am doing good. Yeah, beautiful Tuesday. Excited to get this going.
Awesome. Well, wonderful. Well, I've got a funny story for everyone. For those of you who are regulars here, we're glad to see you. But something funny happened to me. I bit into ice cream on vacation that was completely frozen and broke my implant. So those who are like, Bobby, where'd your tooth go? That's where it went. We're going to start with a laugh. And I haven't had it for 2 weeks now, and it's hard to hold smiles back. I'm not the type of person to just like not smile. So there's the story, guys. I bit into some ice cream, but we're still going live. Nothing stops us from bringing Bitcoin to the world, and we're back this week. And today
Right.
we've got some incredible topics. I'm excited to be here with Graham. Last week we were at our company retreat. We had an incredible time. We were working on our 2024 roadmap. Everyone came together, did a hackathon. We're going to cover some of what we built. It's pretty sweet to see what you can do whenever you come together in such a short time and iterate. But first, I think we'll kick it off with something exciting here. One piece that Graham and I were discussing, which I'll share here now, is the building that's happening on layer 2. It's pretty exciting, everything that's coming about. And David Bailey shared this graphic last week covering what's coming to Bitcoin layer 2, a lot of these different side chains, roll-ups. And Graham, I kind of want to hear some of your thoughts because I honestly had not heard of a lot of these things, and I know we're building a lot of cool stuff for Bitcoin and Lightning, but this is just fascinating to see the attention coming to Bitcoin and layer 2.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I haven't heard of a lot of these either, and I mean, there's some of them that have been around a while, like Stacks and Rootstock, and some of those Liquid. But I think the overall impetus here is that there's definitely a big push for people to start building on Bitcoin and building on it in a new way, with like things like BitVM and stuff, which I know is like all early. We've covered that in a few shows previously, but I think it's really interesting to see this kind of shift into. It feels like a couple cycles ago. What was it? It was like the ICO cycle and then like the NFT cycle, and it feels like this cycle is shaping up to being built on Bitcoin, which is interesting. I mean, whether I bet there's a lot of differing opinions on how much of this is, net good, net bad, like all of those different things. But ultimately, it seems like this cycle is like Bitcoin, which is like super exciting to me, to having lived through so many different cycles where, Bitcoin was the uncool version of these other cycles. And for it to be at the forefront here, I mean, I'm just so excited about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it too. And I know there's a lot of purists or those who love to play and explore and try new things. And I think at the end of the day, like what this really means to me is Bitcoin's going through a resiliency phase. Like I know that we're at the then they attack you stage, right? Like ETFs have it, states are taking or state actors are doing all these things, government, blah, blah, blah. But everything is happening and everything is good in Bitcoin's favor. And it's exciting because over the next 4 years, I think a lot of the world's going to grok Bitcoin, learn and understand the value it can bring, not only as a store of value, but as a medium of exchange. And these layer 2s are necessary. Like what we are building is necessary, what these people are, because it's either going to make Bitcoin stronger, or if something theoretically is going to make it worse or weaker, the world and the builders are going to build something that's going to work its way around it to preserve Bitcoin. Otherwise, it just shouldn't last. Let's be honest. Like if Bitcoin can be taken down, let it happen. Maybe something better will come along. But this is cool. This is very interesting to see, to say the least.
Yep.
Now,
Definitely.
this is pretty interesting too. Higher, more complicated taxes for miners. And this isn't on what they earn. It's on the energy they use. And I saw Pierre tweeting about this too, and he really clarified for those who don't know Pierre Richard. He works at Riot. He does a lot of their research, and he was basically disclosing in a clear way in one of his tweets this week how there's going to be taxes for energy usage, and it can even be for people who are mining alone at home using their own solar. And if you have free and abundant energy in Texas, this is going to drive folks out of Texas. It's going to send miners elsewhere. But I'm curious, like, what you think this is going to do to our industry across the board.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. I haven't dug into this as much as others, but I think that overall, I think it's interesting to be taxing on like energy use as well. I mean, especially like again, I'm really curious how this works from like the renewable standpoint too, because that's kind of one of the big things is Bitcoin is pushing renewables in some interesting ways. And so, do you know, Bobby? Do you know how this like translates into like renewables and things like that? Like, if you're mining using renewables, do you get taxed less, or like how does that come into the equation?
Yeah, I know what Pierre was clarifying. If you are using your own, even if it's on your own land, and like let's say you're not
Mm,
sending it back to the grid, there's going to be some form of tax on it. I don't know if that kind of waterfalls down
mm,
into profits, but um, yeah, it's just a pretty heavy tax on, because like on the energy cost, for instance, for those not doing the math, if you're paying 7 cents a kilowatt hour, a 30% tax on that, I assume that increases the price at a premium by what, like 2.1 cents maybe. Someone correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but that immediately drives the cost up. But as far as for those
yeah.
with free energy on their own land or whatever, I am honestly not sure 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I think overall, I think that it seems a little ridiculous to be taxing kind of this way, and obviously, all taxes are bad anyway. So, but I think that I think it seems like another attempt to kind of stifle some of the push inside of mining and whatnot. So, not I think that we need to be simplifying tax code and increasing the ability for those to innovate, not doing the opposite. So I think it's yeah, we'll hopefully and honestly by the time I guess it depends on the election and all of those things how this kind of plays out. So it'll be interesting to watch and see how the final result kind of comes into play.
Yeah, agreed. And pardon for those who are just looking here, I may have had one of the wrong tweets pulled up. That one had to do with general taxes that was associated with the article. But here you can see a
Mm-hmm.
30% tax on energy used by miners. So Mags and Pierre have been talking about this a lot. So if you want to dig deeper, I encourage you to do. And this is one of those topics that it's good to go speak up on. And for us, we're building Bitcoin and Lightning infrastructure, and we spend time talking to a lot of miners. We work with a lot of people who see the innovation in mining, the value it brings to the energy grid, and mining being present in America. It does a lot in, I think, from a government standpoint, when you go to the courtroom and defend your position, like Riot has done. And by the way, they defended their position
Yeah.
so well that I believe the government, whoever battled against them, paid their lawyer bills for them because they had a good case. But these things happening and the innovation being in Texas and in America, it's what encourages a lot of these money managers and folks that are out there considering Bitcoin. It shines a light on it. This innovation in America is
Mm-hmm.
meaningful for layer two adoption and Bitcoin becoming core infrastructure to what we do. So, go out, engage with this content online, share it, and create awareness, because this is one of those things that likely won't pass because it sets a pretty bad precedent of, hey, now we can say who cannot use energy, and that's going to stifle, AI. It's going to obviously attempt to stifle Bitcoin, but it sets a bad precedent. It's just not good in general for anyone to do something like
Well,
this.
that's an interesting point too. Of like, I mean, what are data centers for AI? Like, are they going to get this 30% tax or something? I think it's like, I think if it's applying specifically to Bitcoin or crypto miners or whatever, however they define it, I think it's obvious. I think there's more at play here than just trying to not only increase the taxes that they can collect, but also making it much harder for any of these operators to actually run a successful operation, in which case, hopefully in their mind, hopefully decreasing the amount of miners we have and whatnot. So it's, yeah, just overall, it's another thing to add to their list of things to fight against and to push back against, because it makes no sense at all.
Yeah, 100%. Another cool topic we have here. I don't know how easy it is to see this, but this is very interesting. This is in BTC terms, the flows
Mhm.
that were happening yesterday. as far as into the ETFs. And you can see here back in January when it started, you can see a lot of these GBTC outflows, and it's slowly increasing. And this is in Bitcoin terms. So the chart above that, which I did not use, it measures it in dollars. I think this is easier since we're talking about a 21 million cap, and a lot of those watching this probably use Bitcoin as their denominator. But we're seeing net total purchases of 8,000, 10,000, 5, 7, 3, 7,000 daily. And it's interesting. Like when you look at the numbers of purchases daily, it's about 500 million, 600 million, and about 400 million outflow from GBTC, which is slowing down. But this amount of Bitcoin being purchased is pretty interesting. And one thing I shared with you, Graham, at our company retreat is Nick Bhatia, I think, has done a pretty wonderful job out there of breaking down how the Lightning Network creates like this new market of quote unquote risk-free yield. And what I think is interesting, and I don't know if anyone is like actively looking into this, but we have products now like Hoseki, which lets you verify funds. You've got Anchor Watch, which provides insurance. You've got Amboss, who provides liquidity. And you have service providers like us that allow anyone to get your own Bitcoin node, have enterprise grade quality infrastructure. And I'm curious, like, are these ETFs, as they hold so much and there's a race to zero of fees, do they supplement that fee that they're charging potentially on a race to zero? Because Van Eck this week, they lowered their fees to, I think, 0% until like the end of March. And they went from, I don't know if it was like 9 million of inflows a day to like 110 million, like 10x inflow or something like that. Like, are these money managers eventually going to leverage the Lightning Network to create yield? Because these risk managers do a lot of things that we can't even fathom, like for those of us who are not in finance. And I'm curious, do you see there being a market where these money managers leverage the Lightning Network and leverage a lot of these tools that are still pretty new, let's be honest, like Anchor Watch and Hoseki? A lot of these are startups, but in the next 5 to 10 years to create yield for their shareholders or for their companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting point. I think to the original thing that you posted, I mean, I think the third tweet in that was like 10 billion in net inflows like since the start of the Bitcoin ETF, which is just really, I mean, that's pretty insane. The numbers that we're kind of dealing with here, and then I think additionally, I think it's certainly possible. I think that there's conversations we've had with some of these folks where they're absolutely interested in that. Now, there's obviously a lot to kind of mature in terms of like the various types of tooling, depending on what they need, kind of the buy sell side of liquidity, like all these different things that kind of need to come together for them to ultimately kind of augment holdings with like yield on top of Lightning. But I think that it is it's an interesting point, and it's something that they themselves are interested in. So I think it'll be fascinating to watch how that actually plays out. And I think that it's also something that will be. I think that you're right in that the fees are, the difference between these ETFs is very nominal in terms of like, it's an ETF is an ETF. Sure, there's some things like underneath of the provider, like all those things, but like ultimately, I think to the point of reducing fees to zero and seeing a huge amount of increase, people are generally just trying to find the lowest fees in a lot of different ways, and I think that I agree that there's just the fees are going to be continuing to decrease over time to be competitive, and so they do need to look for other ways of kind of augmenting it, or maybe the ETF is a way of getting them into some of the other products that the service offers. But ultimately, like, yes, I think that they definitely need to find ways of further monetizing this instrument. And I think that that is a really interesting way of doing it. I think that, again, there's a lot that has to happen in sort of tooling. And then do they have like specific mandates on how they hold like the coins that are, inside of the ETF, or like kind of backing it? Those kinds of things that I think will be really interesting to watch over time. But ultimately, yeah, I think that they're going to have to get creative. But I think for today's world, I think that just the amount of inflows that they've had is enough to keep them busy and happy for a while. But I think over time, as we evolve, there's definitely going to be some uniqueness, I think, especially as we look at, there's not really in the US, at least, the first Bitcoin ETFs. I think there's finally like announcing these ETFs is like the first phase of a broader move that is going to be really interesting to watch like over time.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. And one thing that's interesting that just popped to mind, I believe when Michael Saylor, when he was the CEO of MicroStrategy, he's now executive chairman, I believe, but when they took out their first debt offering immediately after, he mentioned how oversubscribed it was, and they offered a second one. This last one he
Mhm.
did over the last week, where they tried to get 600 million at like 0.67%. They then said it's up to 700. Then the day of announcement, it was 800.
Mhm.
I would
Yeah.
not be surprised due to the oversubscription if they do this again, because his most recent purchase was at 68,000. Now we're at 71.72 with these inflows too, and what he's doing. I think I wouldn't be surprised. And we're not here to speculate, right? That's not what the show is about. But it kind of gets me excited because I see these people taking action swiftly to get some under their ownership. MicroStrategy is probably going to continue what they're doing, and as the price goes up, it's going to force things to move from the store of value to the use of it. Because once you have, I feel like, Bitcoin, you start to really understand, well, why is it a store of value? And I think every institution, every B2B company, anyone that's vertically integrated with multiple parts of their business, they're going to figure out a way to use this. And one
Mhm.
thing that I saw cool today, Lisa, for those who don't know Nifty and I, she was asking, I'd love to pay a Lightning invoice and just receive dollars to my bank account. And then Jack Mallers uh, responded and he says, hey, we have an API for this. Here's the documentation. I think this is one of those things where a lot of companies are just going to be like, we just want to use our Bitcoin, have it settle in dollars. And then whenever they can have that instant settlement, that's when the races really start, because businesses can experience the value of Bitcoin. And I'm curious, from your perspective, do you think that's something that's going to be coming like by 2025, where that's going to be readily available for businesses to take advantage of just Bitcoin straight to dollars?
Yeah, I mean, I think yes, I think that there are services that offers things similar to that, like Strike and whatnot. And I think when we have taproot assets and stablecoins on Lightning, I think that it can decrease the friction of that as well. So over time, yeah, I think that we're definitely it's gonna. I'm excited to see how taproot assets play out on top of Lightning and with stablecoins and whatnot, which I think could be a significant mover in enabling things like this. Like, sure, it's kind of possible today, but it becomes much different when you do it with stable coins. So I think that will be really interesting to see, and I think that from what I know and have heard around the like taproot assets and all those things, it seems like certainly possible by next year. But we'll see. We'll see how the market takes it.
Awesome. That's super exciting. Well, good to hear. Now, just wrapping up in today's show, we got probably like 5 minutes left. We dropped on Citadel Dispatch. I got my hat on today, but for those that were listening, we announced Mutiny Net is coming to Voltage and a Hydro integration. Could you maybe just share with the audience, now that that's out there, just where that stands as of today and like what that means for our users and just builders on Bitcoin?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what we're so as part of that, yeah, we kind of like did an announcement of an announcement. I guess it's not available today, but we're adding in support for Mutiny Net inside of Voltage, which is basically it's a type of signet that enables kind of easier testing than what exists inside of testnet. Testnet can be a little buggy and things like that, but ultimately it makes the developer experience inside of Voltage and just building on Bitcoin much easier and simpler. So we're going to be adding that in to Voltage to make the developer experience even better and really make just testing kind of payments, the whole flow end to end, much easier. So that'll be coming fairly soon. And then also integrating with Amboss's Hydro product, which is essentially the automation tool set on top of their Magma marketplace. So basically enabling our customers to quickly, easily purchase channels, get liquidity from the Magma marketplace in a really simple, automated fashion. So it'll help in some of the liquidity and diversification of liquidity as well. So both of those things are going to, I think, drastically enhance both like the developer experience as well as kind of operations and liquidity management. So those are going to be really exciting things for us to kind of pull over the line and release fairly soon. I think is going to help the community and help just builders come to Voltage and be able to solve a lot of their problems kind of all in one place, like we've been talking about for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, this is cool because I learned a lot about Mutiny Net this weekend, and really it's helping builders just build way faster. They can run into their problem or their wall sooner. They can address what they need and build in a more accurate environment, and then that's great. Right now you can go live, and then when your product is ready to grow and scale, you need liquidity. You need the ability for money to flow where it needs to go as quickly as possible, and Hydro helps solve for that. And having both of those in Voltage solves two things. It allows people to build faster and bring product to market, and then it allows you to scale and have liquidity when you need it, so that as your product finds product market fit, you grow, you get more users, or you simply just want to send more money and it's an internal tool for your business, you can do that as quickly as you need to. So that's really exciting to hear about. And for me, it gives me a lot of fun stuff to market. So, I'm thrilled. But this is good
Yeah.
stuff, man. I'm excited. We're getting close to the end of the show here. 20 minutes weekly, guys. We're going to tune in every Tuesday like we've been doing. We're on number 7 now, almost hitting 2 months. So this is great. But Graham, until next week, any final words, any thoughts that you've had just coming back post company retreat or anything happening in Bitcoin this week?
No, I mean, I think it's just an exciting time. I think there's a lot of interest across a lot of different sectors. Like, I think that Bitcoin is heating up, and if you think, like, we're still like at over 70K or something. We're kind of we're basically idling at all time high right now, which is pretty wild to think about. But then also you think about all of the things that are happening. I think that this is just the beginning, and we have a long way to go from here. So we're going to be I think we're going to continue to see some really big players onboarding, some new products, all of these different things. So super exciting time. And we're just getting started.
Heck yeah. Well, good deal, guys. We appreciate y'all tuning in. Looks like 158 or so of you locked in watching across platforms this week. So we appreciate it. We'll be back next week. If there's anything you want to see us cover, share it with me on Twitter or and on our Voltage page, LinkedIn. That's where we'll be streaming weekly. So, Graham, I appreciate you being here with me again, and we'll see y'all soon.
Thanks, everybody.